And Mexico's preparation hasn't just been about their stadium. The country has deployed 100,000 security personnel across the three host cities for the duration of the tournament. The government understood early that their hosting role carried responsibility, not just logistically, but symbolically. When the noise around the American side of the tournament began to build, Mexican organizers made a clear and deliberate decision to position their host cities as welcoming, accessible, and safe for fans from every corner of the world. That message has been received. Travel agencies report that fans who initially planned U.S.-only itineraries are increasingly structuring trips that use Mexico City as a base, flying into the Azteca, then routing north for American matches. Mexico's football matters too. El Tri, the national team, are in Group A alongside South Africa, Czechia, and South Korea. They play the opening match on June 11th at the Azteca against South Africa. If they top the group, they play their round of 32 knockout match at the Azteca as well, giving them the chance to advance in front of their own crowd, in their own stadium, in a tournament they're hosting for the third time in their history. The pressure is immense. Mexico has been eliminated in the group stage in each of their last 3 World Cup appearances, including Qatar in 2022. The quarter-final exits in 1970 and 1986, their 2 best performances, both achieved on home soil, have become the benchmark. Raul Jimenez, the Fulham striker, who has rebuilt his career after a devastating skull fracture in 2020, leads the attack at 35 years old. He knows this is almost certainly his last World Cup. That kind of context, a player carrying years of recovery and determination, playing at home, in the stadium where the game's greatest legends won the sport's greatest prize, creates the kind of narrative you can't manufacture. It either happens or it doesn't, but the ingredients are all there. What do you think? Can Mexico finally go beyond the quarterfinal this time? With home advantage, a passionate crowd, and Jimenez leading the line, the pieces are there. Leave your prediction in the comments. Now let's cross the border north, because Canada's story is in some ways even more remarkable. And the reason it's remarkable is all about what it means to a country to finally have football arrive at home. Canada has appeared at 2 World Cups in their entire history. 2. In 1986 in Mexico, they played 3 matches, lost all 3, scored no goals, and went home. In 2022 in Qatar, they played 3 matches, lost 2, won 1, and went home. 6 World Cup matches across 4 decades, and they're still waiting for their first knockout stage appearance. On June 12, 2026, Canada plays Bosnia and Herzegovina at BMO Field in Toronto. It is the first men's World Cup match ever played on Canadian soil. Not just the first Canada match, the first match of any kind between any 2 nations on Canadian ground. The first time the World Cup has come to them. The first time the fans don't have to fly 7 hours and navigate an unfamiliar city to support their team. They just get on the subway. The scale of what that means to Canadian football cannot be overstated. Soccer is now the largest participatory sport in Canada by registered players, nearly 1 million people. It overtook hockey in youth participation years ago. The generation of players who grew up watching Dwayne DeRozio and the early days of the national team's revival are now the same fans who will fill BMO Field on June 12th. Their children will be there too, and they will watch Alphonso Davies lead Canada out as captain. Davies, born in a Ghanaian refugee camp to Liberian parents, who moved to Edmonton as a 5-year-old and grew up to become one of the most electrifying left-backs in the history of European club football, onto a pitch in the city where he made his professional debut. That is a genuinely extraordinary story, and it belongs entirely to Canadian football, not to a transfer saga or a sponsorship deal or a media narrative, to the sport itself and to the people who built it here. Coach Jesse Marsh, an American, notably, who turned down the U.S. MNT job when it was reportedly offered to him and chose Canada instead, has been building something deliberate since he took the job in May 2024. The squad he's assembled is the most talented squad in Canadian football history. Alphonso Davies at Bayern Munich, Jonathan David, who finished among the top scorers in League One last season and recently made a profile move to Juventus, leading the attack.
Ismail Kone in midfield, born in Ivory Coast, playing Serie A football for Sassuolo. Tejan Buchanan on the wing, establishing himself in La Liga. A squad whose average age is just 24.8, one of the youngest at the entire tournament. The concern heading into the tournament is fitness. Davies tore his ACL in March 2025 and spent months working his way back. He returned to action for Bayern, made an impact, but questions about whether he can sustain a full tournament campaign remain. Promise David, projected to play as a second striker alongside Jonathan, suffered a serious injury in February and won't be available. Alistair Johnston, one of the squad's most reliable performers, is also carrying concerns. March himself said after March friendlies that went 1-0 draws against Tunisia and Iceland, "I've got some tough decisions to make. I know that with a heavy heart, I'm going to make some people disappointed." The 6 injured players who form what one analyst called Canada's backbone squad represent a real challenge. But March has depth, he has options, and he has something that can't be quantified on a fitness report. The knowledge that when Canada runs out in Toronto on June 12th, every single person in that stadium is there for them. Not for the novelty of the World Cup in their city, for Canada, for this team, for this moment. Here's where things get interesting, because what Canada and Mexico are doing isn't happening in isolation from the pressure building on FIFA. Think about what FIFA is dealing with right now. The boycott conversation that started in Germany and spread across European football federations. The visa bond that was placed on fans from 50 countries and only reversed 2 days ago. The broadcast deals with China and India still unconfirmed with less than a month to kick off. The hotel bookings running below forecasts across most U.S. host cities. The questions about immigration enforcement near venues that remain unanswered in writing. In the middle of all of that, Mexico is preparing for the 3rd opening ceremony in Azteca history. Canada is preparing for their first ever home World Cup match. And the energy in those cities, the genuine, unmanufactured energy, is the best answer FIFA has to every one of those concerns. Travel experts have started noticing something. Fans from Europe and Africa and Latin America who originally planned US-only itineraries are redesigning their trips. Multi-destination itineraries that use Mexico City or Toronto as a hub, with individual matches in American cities as day trips or short flights, are being booked with increasing frequency. The data from several travel agencies suggests that this shift is happening fast enough to have a real impact on the commercial numbers for the Mexican and Canadian host cities, even as the American numbers lag.
In practical terms, what that means is this. Mexico City, Guadalajara, Monterrey, Toronto, and Vancouver may come out of this tournament with stronger commercial outcomes than anyone projected when the hosting arrangement was first announced. The cities that were supposed to play a supporting role to the United States are becoming, for a significant number of international visitors, the preferred base of operations. That trend has implications beyond this tournament. Canada and Mexico are building a football hosting legacy in real time. The infrastructure, the organization, the reputation, all of it carries forward to future bids, future tournaments, future events. FIFA notices who delivers, and right now the delivery coming out of the co-hosts is notably strong. Now let's talk about the atmosphere, because if you've ever been to a World Cup, you know that the football is only part of what makes it unforgettable. The other part is everything that happens around it. In Mexico City, the Zócalo, the massive central square that has been the heart of Mexican public life for centuries, will be transformed into a fan festival for the duration of the tournament. This is not a screen in a park. The Zócalo holds hundreds of thousands of people. On the nights when Mexico play, that square is going to generate a level of noise and color and pure football joy that very few places on earth can match. Mariachi bands, Mexican football history on every screen, generations of fans who have been waiting their whole lives to feel this energy without leaving their own city. In Guadalajara, the home of tequila and the Chivas faithful, Estadio Akron will host 4 group stage matches, including Mexico's game against South Korea on June 18th. The city's Plaza Liberación, between the cathedral and the Teatro Degollado, will host the fan zone in one of the most visually stunning public spaces in North America.
In Monterrey, the BBVA Stadium stands against the backdrop of the Sierra Madre Mountains. It's been described as the most beautiful stadium setting in the entire tournament. On a clear evening with 53,000 fans inside and the mountains behind them, it's the kind of visual that defines how a football tournament looks in memory. In Toronto, BMO Field has been expanded to accommodate the World Cup crowds. The waterfront location, the multicultural fabric of the city, Toronto is one of the most diverse cities on Earth, and that diversity is going to show up in those stands. Fans from dozens of nationalities, all converging on a Canadian football ground for a World Cup match, in a city that has been dreaming about this moment for years. In Vancouver, BC Place will host 7 matches, including Canada's fixtures against Qatar and Switzerland. The city's fan festival is being built at the Pacific National Exhibition Grounds, with a state-of-the-art amphitheater and live entertainment connecting football culture with Vancouver's famously vibrant art scene. 5 cities, 5 completely different textures of experience, all of them building towards something that the broader tournament conversation hasn't quite captured yet. The story of a World Cup that found its soul not in the cities with the most matches, but in the ones that wanted it most deeply. Let's look at the bigger picture now, because what Canada and Mexico are doing, stepping into the breach, offering warmth and welcome and football passion at precisely the moment the tournament needs it most, raises a question worth sitting with. What does the co-hosting model mean for the future of the World Cup? This has been the first truly tri-nation World Cup in the sport's history, and the dynamic it's produced has been unexpected. Rather than one coherent tournament experience, fans are navigating 3 different countries, 3 different visa regimes, 3 different cultures. For some fans, that's an adventure. For others, it's created friction and confusion that wouldn't exist in a single host tournament. But here's what the co-hosting model has also produced: redundancy. If one part of the arrangement runs into trouble, the others can carry the weight. That's exactly what we're watching happen. The pressure on the American side of this tournament hasn't collapsed the whole structure because the Mexican and Canadian cities are providing ballast. The emotional energy that should have been distributed equally across all 3 nations has shifted, not entirely but meaningfully, towards the co-hosts who faced fewer headwinds. FIFA's decision to award future tournaments will almost certainly factor in what they're seeing now. The organization is already looking ahead to the 2030 Centennial World Cup, which will be spread across 6 countries on 3 continents. The question of what happens when one part of a multi-host arrangement underperforms, commercially, logistically, or atmospherically, is being answered in real time, right now for the first time in the sport's history. What they're learning is that co-hosting works when the co-hosts are genuinely committed and genuinely prepared. Mexico and Canada have been both. They didn't get as many matches, they didn't get the final, they didn't get the centerpiece of the commercial operation, but they may get something more lasting. The memory that the moment the 2026 World Cup felt most like a World Cup was in their cities. So let's bring it back to where we started. Because the big question for this tournament, the one that every conversation eventually arrives at, isn't about hotel bookings or visa bonds or broadcast rights. It's about whether, when the football starts, it feels like a World Cup. And the honest answer, looking at everything we know right now, is that in Mexico City and Toronto and Vancouver and Guadalajara and Monterrey, it absolutely will. The Azteca hosting its 3rd opening ceremony, Canada playing their first ever home match, the fan festivals, the atmospheres, the players who have worked their entire careers for this moment about to play it in front of the people who love them most. That's what a World Cup is supposed to feel like. Alphonso Davies running at a defender down the left flank at BMO Field with 50,000 Canadians on their feet. Jonathan David one-on-one with a goalkeeper with the weight of a nation behind him. Raúl Jiménez, at 34 years old, in the Azteca, in the stadium where the sport's greatest player won the sport's greatest prize, trying to be the man who takes Mexico further than they've ever gone at a home tournament. None of those stories are about logistics. None of them are about visa policy or hotel occupancy rates. They're about football. They're about what the sport actually is, stripped of everything that surrounds it. And that's the thing Canada and Mexico are offering this tournament. Not the biggest share of the matches, not the final, but something arguably more important right now, the reminder of what this is all for. So here's what I want to know from you. As everything around this tournament swirls, the access concerns, the boycott discussions, the commercial questions, does the football itself cut through for you? Is the prospect of Canada's first ever home World Cup match or Mexico's third opening ceremony at the Azteca the thing that makes you excited for June regardless of the noise? And prediction time. Which of the three host nations goes furthest? The United States, with their home advantage and growing football culture? Mexico, with the Azteca's history behind them? Or Canada, the youngest squad, the hungriest, the one playing at home for the first time in 40 years? Drop it in the comments. These conversations are what football is made of. If this kind of coverage is what you're here for, please hit the like button. It genuinely makes a difference for this channel. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we are going to be covering every single angle of this tournament all the way through to July 19th. This story is still developing. And as always, football never stays quiet for long. See you in the next one.